Hello and welcome to Wide Angle. Newspapers have announced an unlikely caliphate in the region somewhere between Syria and Iraq. The story has been on for the past 1 week, and I dare say a great deal it is accompanied by a great deal of media hype. How much of it is true and how much of it is an exaggeration, we shall find out through the agency of a very distinguished panel that we have here. We have Zorawar Daulet Singh, who is doing his PhD on the subject from King's College London, and Professor Aijaz Ahmad, who in fact teaches international affairs. Why don't you take it up, Professor? How much of it appears to you to be something of a hype?
Well, there is now a Khilafat proclamation, 12 pages, which is emanated from ISIS in 4 languages. Where it is headquartered is not very clear. It's a classic takfiri document. I mean, it's very fascinating. I've read the whole proclamation. It is not a media hype. It is whatever it is something issued by people who at the moment control an immense amount of territory and quite a bit of weaponry and following of diverse forces. How diverse, we still can speculate about that. So it's a document to be taken seriously. It has, I think, 2 or 3 different kinds of significance. One, this is not the first time that anything of this kind has been proclaimed. Something resembling that was proclaimed from Kabul by the Taliban when Mullah Umar became the Amir al-Mu'mineen.
When they were holding press conferences from Islamabad.
Well, I mean, there was a Taliban government actually in Kabul for a while, and they were pretending to be leaders of all Muslims in the world. That's one significance. This is not the first time. This might happen again and again. But for now, in the imagination and claims of great many, it exists. Second a significance of it is that it seems to me that the document is preemptive against other takfiri groups. If you announce it first while you hold all of these territories, you can claim a very different kind of recognition than your competitors within the takfiri world can do. But the most important and interesting aspect of the document, so far as I can see, is that being a classic takfiri document, it is also deeply anti-monarchical. Now, Qatar, according to the Financial Times, has spent $3 billion on these very groupings. How much of that has gone to ISIS? How much of that has gone to Zawahiri? We don't know. But these are creations of monarchical power and imperial power. And yet the document is that. That is what the significance to me is of the proclamation document.
Well, do you see, at the very outset, in fact, if you go back to Syria, the conflict in Syria, actually Saudi Arabia was able to enlist the support of Qatar. It was able to enlist the support of Turkey, of various countries, smaller, and GCC, of course, is their territory. Over a period of time, there was a difference of opinion, and a very sharp one, between Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Now, is that showing up in this particular document, which to me appears to be a document? And whether it really is about territory which they hold and which is still very unclear.
I would actually try and give you a macro picture. I see this as a struggle for power in the larger region, and it's a geopolitical struggle. You have, briefly, the 2 blocks or alignments are, you have the US-led sort of bloc, United States, Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey. On the other side, you have Iran and Syria, but receiving a lot of support from Russia for the last 2 to 3 years. So you're seeing a resurgence of Russia in the region. Now, what I find surprising is in the mainstream media, especially in the West, on how the rise of the ISIL, now IS, is being treated sort of in a very interesting fashion. The way sort of the borders of the Middle East are considered to be malleable and can always be restructured. So normally you have this, I mean, contrast it with Europe, for instance. You saw a little slice of Ukraine being pulled back into the Russian orbit, and you saw a massive storm in mainstream Western media. Here you're seeing casual language where Iraq could be partitioned into 3 parts. The Vice President of the United States actually favored this plan back in 2006. So just to highlight to the Indian audience that how you have contrasting images for different regions for a Westphalian system.
Yes.
Coming to the IS, you're absolutely right where it's the origins of the present crisis are from the Syrian crisis. Now the Syrian crisis was really a counterinsurgency struggle where terrorists, rebels, good terrorists, whatever you want to call them, were being financed by the US-led group to destabilize and ultimately topple a legitimate sovereign government in the name of Assad.
US and Saudi. US, Saudi,
Qatar. There was a Turkey played a very, very important role, in fact, in funneling support, logistics, etc. So it was sort of a containment strategy to finally sort of destroy the Syrian regime. It didn't work because the Iranians stepped in and the Russians stepped in. So now you're seeing a spillover of this large sort of group of disenfranchised sort of mercenaries that have sort of retreated into a porous and weak Western Iraq, and now they're sort of regrouping there to sort of receive the next set of instructions, or perhaps let inertia take over. So,
does that seem like a plausible scenario, you think?
By and large, I would say it's plausible. But there are 2 or 3 problems in that, I think, that we need to refine a bit. One is that it's not possible actually to talk so confidently about 2 straightforward blocks. Partly because American alignments keep shifting. And that is partly because they have very different kinds of agendas at various points in life. I'll give you an example. Thomas Friedman, the dean of American journalism, on the 4th of June describes al-Maliki as our guy and our best gift to Iraq since we left. On the 4th of June. 3 weeks later, Mr. Kerry, the Secretary of State, is flying around various capitals asking to put together a government without Maliki. Now, the latest news seems to be that Mr. Kerry tried to persuade the Saudi government to allow Maliki to carry on. So, there is that. There's this question of Americans who have been, along with their friends, have been funding these very people in Syria, are threatening a new intervention against them in Iraq, to return to Iraq to suppress them. So that's one sort of thing I would say. So it's not very clear just what the US objectives are. And I think it is an effect of overextension and having really contradictory objectives there. So far as roots are concerned, how far back do you want to go in roots? Syria was itself a spin-off of what had been happening in Iraq and Afghanistan, especially in Libya. Then the characterization of Turkey. You see, again, you have very difficult things happening there. Turkey, Qatar, who are virtually Muslim Brotherhood sponsors, not virtually, actually, are aligned with Saudi Arabia, which wishes to suppress. And all of them funding various Takfiri groups in Syria with the single purpose of toppling Bashar al-Assad. Yeah. So, these are very mobile sort of alignments and tentative ones which keep shifting.
Zorawar, you were raising your finger.
Yeah, you see this map here, so it's very interesting. If you really want to look at the cause of the crisis in West Asia, it's really that it's the problem of Iraq, right? So you had, for the last half century, till 2003, you really had an organic power structure that was balancing different power centers. So Iraq was balancing Iran. By taking that out, you opened up not two aspects. You obviously unraveled the multi-ethnic state of Iraq, which was kept in an iron hand by a secular authoritarian Saddam. Second, what you did was you took out a counterbalancing force to Shiite and Iranian power in the region.
Yes.
Now, having done that, the United States is finding some reason or some way to undo the damage of that policy. But because domestic politics in the United States does not allow them to re-intervene in such a large scale, they are resorting to local sort of social engineering and trying to create new power structures. So ISIL should be seen in that context also, that they're trying to sort of create some sort of an Iraq which could not be completely under the sway of Iran and have sort of a check between a line of communication from Iran all the way up to Syria. So this is the other game that's also playing out. But I guess as US analysts themselves have stated, you can't undo that one dramatic strategic error on the part of the United States.
Is it a case that both Saudi Arabia and the ultimate puppeteer, the United States of America, that they, having started a game, having set something into motion, have lost control?
Look, Saeed, how far back do you want to go? We have already gone back to 2003 Iraq. You have to go back to 1948, 1952. You have to go back to the time when the Americans decided that Islam was going to be their main instrument against communism in the Middle East and against secular Arab nationalism, who were a threat to Western powers. Secondly, their strategic alliance with the Gulf monarchies on the one hand, Israel on the other.
Right.
If you want to talk about the original strategic error in terms of launching a war, you go back to the beginning of the Afghan war when they collect of the Afghanistan war, where they collect 100,000 jihadis from all over the world and thereby give to these little splinter groups an immense power, presence on the world scale, experience, money, funds, this, that, and the other. And those chicken are now coming home to roost. Since then, they have been trying all kinds of ways of holding back. And Brzezinski, even 5-7 years ago, the former national security advisor of Carter, who assembled all these jihadis, he said, listen, I'm very proud of it because we brought about the collapse of the Soviet Empire. What does it matter if there are a few jihadis running around the world?
Right.
Well, there are not few jihadis running around the world. So, it goes as far back as that. So how much are they going to be able to reverse? That's why I'm saying that you have that problem. And one more point I want to make, that America is a declining power. It does not know how to retreat. It wishes to dictate, and now it is unable even to dictate to countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, who depend upon it entirely because they depend on the finance of the Gulf monarchies. So you have a complete chaos in this situation.